They told you the story wrong on purpose. Lilith was cast as the demon and Mary Magdalene as the sinner, one expelled from Eden, the other erased from the Gospels. But what if the forbidden union of these two women holds the key to everything? The Gnostic tradition tried to preserve and the Church tried to bury. This isn't just a myth. It's a spiritual code hidden beneath centuries of silence. In the Gnostic vision, Lilith and Magdalene are not enemies of faith. They are guardians of a deeper truth. They represent the sacred feminine split in two: power without permission, love without condition. Their union is forbidden for a reason. It shatters the very structure of religious control. You're not here by accident. If you've ever felt torn between rebellion and devotion, between desire and transcendence, this is your call to remember. The story we were told didn't get twisted by accident, you know? It was done on purpose. It's like that old saying, whoever tells a story adds their own spin. And wow, did they ever add spin when it comes to Lilith and Mary Magdalene? It's obvious there's a deep mystery behind these figures, a secret that few have had the courage to uncover. At the heart of Gnosticism, we find clues that make us question. What if everything we learned about them was just the tip of the iceberg? The truth is, when we dive into the ocean of authentic spirituality, we discover these women carried torches of knowledge that illuminated paths many preferred to keep in darkness. Wow, it's no wonder so much effort was made to distort their images. Think about it. Why would so much energy be spent turning one into a demon and the other into a sinner if there wasn't something revolutionary about their original roles? It's precisely in awakening this consciousness that we begin to see the outlines of a hidden truth. In the Gnostic tradition, far from being antagonists of faith, they are presented as guardians of deep knowledge, of a gnosis that had the power to free souls from material imprisonment. They weren't enemies of the divine, quite the opposite. They represented distinct faces of the sacred feminine that, when understood in their totality, reveal a path of spiritual integrity that was systematically fragmented. Deep down, what we have here is a surgical operation performed on the heart of original mysticism, a carefully planned split to separate what should have remained united. Just imagine if people understood that the sacred feminine was divided into two parts, so it could be more easily controlled. What a revolutionary discovery that would be. It's as if, throughout the centuries, we've been invited to choose either the purified submissive woman or the demonized rebel. But what if this choice was false from the beginning? What if the path to true enlightenment was precisely in recognizing the unity behind this apparent duality? Man, this really shakes up deep structures, doesn't it? When we begin to question these narratives, we're actually challenging an entire belief system built to maintain certain power hierarchies. In the field of the occult, they've always known about this transformative potential contained in the union of these seemingly opposite figures. That's why this knowledge was reserved for initiates, those who were ready to see beyond the veils of collective illusion. After all, recognizing the integrity of the sacred feminine is also recognizing our own inner integrity, one that transcends the false dichotomies between light and shadow, between spirit and matter. And look, don't be fooled into thinking this is just a matter of historical revision or modern feminism. What's at stake here is much deeper and goes straight to the heart of the awakening experience. When a person begins to sense this truth, something stirs in the depths of their soul, as if an ancient memory is being activated. Have you felt this? That sensation that something important was forgotten and is now beginning to return. It's as if every cell in your body recognizes a truth that your conscious mind still struggles to articulate. And it's no coincidence that this sensation arises precisely when we approach the topic of biblical feminine figures in their original expression. There's an ancestral energy pulsing in this recognition, a force that connects past and future in a single moment of transformative understanding. Let's face it, right? Who hasn't felt that inner fire that every now and then threatens to burn all the chains that bind us? That's exactly what Lilith represents at the heart of Gnosticism. We're not talking about that demonized caricature. They tried to force down our throats, but a powerful archetypal presence that pulses at the core of authentic spirituality. She embodies sovereignty, power that doesn't ask permission to exist. You know that moment when you finally say no to a situation that was sucking your vital energy? That's Lilith, whispering in your ear, awakening your dormant consciousness. In the Gnostic tradition, she's not seen as a threat to be exorcised, but as a forgotten teacher whose teachings were deliberately erased from the official pages of history. And it's no surprise that her figure causes so much discomfort in traditional circles. After all, what could be more threatening to a system based on obedience than a force that honors above all inner freedom? On the path to enlightenment, sooner or later we encounter this rebellious energy that refuses any form of submission that isn't aligned with our essential truth. It's as if Lilith appears precisely in moments of rupture, in the crises that precede great evolutionary leaps. Have you noticed how, frequently, something needs to break inside us before we can access deeper levels of understanding? That's sacred rebellion in action, the force that destroys so something new can be born. Look, many people get scared when they feel this energy awakening. It's like we've been conditioned to fear our own power. In original mysticism, Lilith represents the fallen Sophia, the wisdom that, for daring to create without authorization, was exiled from the higher realms. But her exile wasn't a punishment. It was an initiation into the mysteries of matter, a dive into the depths of existence. In fact, each time we go through a fall in our spiritual journey, we're repeating this archetypal pattern. It's in moments of crisis, when we lose certainties and external supports, that we're forced to find that untamable inner strength that was always there, waiting to be rediscovered. You know that moment when you finally break free from a toxic relationship or leave a career that was suffocating your soul. That's Lilith's awakening energy manifesting. She appears in these moments of apparent chaos, which we later recognize as essential turning points in our journey. In the field of the occult, they've always known that this force isn't something to be feared or suppressed, but honored and consciously integrated into the spiritual journey. Think about those people we know who have a fierce integrity, who don't bend to social pressures when their inner truth is at stake. They're manifesting this Lilithian quality, this refusal to compromise their essence, even when it would be more comfortable to simply adapt. And the question remains, how can we reconcile ourselves with this primordial force that both frightens and fascinates us? On the path of Gnosis, it's not about worshipping Lilith as an external entity, but recognizing her presence as a vital dimension of our own nature. She inhabits that part of us that knows how to say no when necessary, that can establish healthy boundaries, that dares to question what everyone around accepts without thinking. And when we begin to honor this aspect in ourselves, something extraordinary happens. Instead of feeling guilty about our inner rebellions, we begin to recognize in them the sacred impulse that breaks the chains of unconsciousness. Imagine if, instead of fighting against this transformative energy, we began to work in partnership with it. What a powerful awakening this could trigger, not just in our individual lives, but in the collective consciousness we share. Between you and me, it's amazing how they managed to transform Mary Magdalene into such a distorted figure, isn't it? For centuries, they painted her as the repentant sinner, but in reality, at the heart of Gnosticism, she emerges as something radically different. We're talking about someone who, far from needing external redemption, was herself the revealer of inner light. In the Gnostic Gospels, she doesn't walk around as a secondary character. She's described as the woman who knew the all, the one whose understanding transcended what the other disciples could grasp. Just imagine what this means in an era when female voices were systematically silenced. Authentic spirituality recognizes in her not a woman to be forgiven, but an initiate in the deepest mysteries, someone whose consciousness had already awakened to dimensions few dared to explore. Pay close attention to what the Gnostic texts reveal to us. While the other disciples fought for positions and struggled for understanding, Mary Magdalene was already tuned into the essence of the teachings. No wonder they tried to diminish her importance. On the path to enlightenment, we recognize that she represents something extremely powerful, the ability to receive direct knowledge, the kind that doesn't pass through the filters of intellect, but is absorbed by the totality of one's being. Have You ever had that experience where suddenly you understand something not just with your mind, but with every cell in your body? This is the type of gnosis that Magdalene exemplifies, an embodied, lived knowledge that transforms a person from the inside out. In esoteric traditions, she's seen as one who could see beyond the veils of illusion, capturing the essence behind the forms. Man, it's truly fascinating how she managed to stay firm in her purpose, even when confronted with the distrust of the other disciples. In original mysticism, Mary Magdalene isn't just a follower, she's an equal, perhaps even the one who best understood the message in its totality. The Gospel of Philip speaks of this unique closeness, using the metaphor of the kiss as a symbol of direct transmission of knowledge. Notice that this isn't about romance, but about a vibrational frequency, a deep attunement to the Logos, the living word that few could truly capture. How many times have you felt that sudden understanding that strikes you like lightning, illuminating everything in your path? Moments like these connect us with this Magdalene-like quality of consciousness. In the Gnostic tradition, she represents the return, the reunion of what was fragmented. If Sophia, divine wisdom, had descended into chaos, Mary Magdalene symbolizes the way back, the rescue of what seemed lost. It's a journey of redemption, but not in the moral sense we were taught. It's about a metaphysical alchemy, where the wounded feminine not only heals but reclaims its legitimate throne in the cosmic order. Think about it. In the awakening journey, we all go through moments when essential parts of ourselves seem to have been forgotten or banished. The process of spiritual awakening consists largely of recovering these lost dimensions, of reintegrating these exiled aspects of our integral being. That's where Magdalene's energy becomes a powerful guide, showing us that the way back is always open. What makes her story so revolutionary isn't just what she did, but what she represents in archetypal terms. She embodies a possibility that the occult has always preserved, a spirituality that doesn't reject the body, but recognizes it as a temple, that doesn't deny intuition, but elevates it to the status of legitimate knowledge, that doesn't separate love from wisdom, but recognizes them as faces of the same coin. Have you noticed how, when we begin to awaken spiritually, we often rediscover the sacredness of dimensions of life that we were taught to consider profane? This is Magdalene energy in action, that which dissolves the false dichotomies between sacred and secular, between spirit and matter. In a world that teaches us to compartmentalize experience, she walks a third path, integrating seemingly opposite polarities into a higher synthesis that transcends and includes the opposites. Has it ever occurred to you that perhaps the greatest revelation isn't about two distinct women, but about a single essence divided in half? Well, the most revolutionary proposal at the heart of Gnosticism is precisely this. Lilith and Mary Magdalene were never truly two separate entities, but a single sacred presence that was fractured through time and exiled by dogma. It's as if history underwent a metaphysical surgery, artificially separating what was born as an integrated whole. In the search for authentic enlightenment, we begin to glimpse the contours of this ancestral truth that the descent, represented by Lilith, and the ascension, embodied by Magdalene, are in reality complementary parts of a single spiral movement of consciousness through the planes of existence. The question is truly fascinating, isn't it? When we look carefully, we realize that we're facing a single narrative artificially divided by the blade of patriarchy. In a deeper perspective of spirituality, Lilith isn't the villain of the story, nor is Magdalene simply the redeemed one. They are complementary aspects of the sacred feminine in its journey through the realms of being. Have you ever experienced that feeling that you're missing something essential, even when externally everything seems to be in place? It's the echo of this primordial split, this wound in the collective psyche that we all carry at some level. On the path of gnosis, we understand that true healing doesn't come from choosing one side over the other, but from restoring the original unity that transcends this false dichotomy. And why is this union considered so dangerous by the guardians of orthodoxy? because it dissolves the great illusion that fragmented the sacred feminine into stereotypical roles. Just imagine, for centuries we've been conditioned to worship the distant virgin and to fear or condemn the sensual woman. In authentic mysticism, however, we recognize that this division doesn't reflect the integral nature of the divine feminine, but only serves as a control mechanism. When we experience moments of deep integration, those in which the spiritual and corporeal, intuitive and rational dimensions of our being finally seem to dance in harmony, we're glimpsing the restoration of this primordial unity. It's precisely these states of integrated consciousness that the occult has always sought to cultivate, beyond the fragmentations imposed by conventional religious systems. Take a good look at the symbolism. On one side, we have the serpent, Lilith, and on the other, the sacred oil, Magdalene. On the surface, they seem like contradictory elements, but in the deeper symbolic language, they reveal themselves as complementary. The serpent isn't simply temptation, it's initiation. It's the kundalini energy dormant at the base of the spine, promising to awaken and elevate consciousness to higher dimensions. The oil, in turn, isn't mere purification, it's consecration. It's the recognition of the inherent sacredness of the body and matter. When united, these symbols reveal an integral path of awakening that honors both the descent into the realms of matter and the ascension to the domains of spirit. How many times have you felt that your deepest impulses and your highest aspiration aren't enemies but allies in a process of alchemical transformation? And here we face an internal revolution. What if all the parts that were exiled, demonized, or silenced within us weren't errors to be corrected, but precious fragments waiting for reintegration? In the esoteric tradition, the union of Lilith and Magdalene isn't just a theological adjustment, it's a map for psychic and spiritual integrity. It's the recognition that primordial energy, often feared, and loving devotion, usually idealized, aren't antagonistic forces, but complementary polarities of the same unified field of consciousness. And when we begin to work consciously with this reunion within ourselves, something extraordinary happens. Internal divisions begin to heal, masks fall away, and an authentic presence emerges that no longer needs to fragment itself to survive in a world of contradictory expectations. It's as if each previously rejected or suppressed aspect of our nature was finally invited to return from exile, bringing with it gifts and treasures we didn't even know belonged to us. You know, deep down, this whole story isn't just about mythological figures or biblical characters. It's about you. It's about each one of us. At the heart of Gnosticism, we find this revolutionary truth. Lilith and Mary Magdalene live within us as forces often denied, feared, or forgotten. One dares to say no when everyone expects obedience. The other dares to love beyond established rules. And both patiently wait for us to remember a fundamental truth. The soul isn't either this or that, it's both this and that. When we begin to awaken to this broader consciousness, we stop fighting against parts of ourselves and initiate a process of inner reconciliation that is the very essence of authentic spirituality. Have you experienced that deep relief that comes when you finally stop resisting an aspect of yourself that you've always tried to suppress? It's like a weight being lifted, isn't it? Integrating these energies isn't merely symbolic. It's deeply personal and transformative. It means owning your shadow without shame, recognizing that what we were taught to fear often contains priceless gifts. It also means learning to love with wisdom, not from unhealed wounds, but from an integrated center of being. On the path to enlightenment, sooner or later we arrive at this crossroads. Continue living divided, or begin the alchemical work of reuniting the separated parts. Think about situations in your life where you felt torn between what your heart desired and what rational mind dictated as appropriate. Wouldn't it be liberating to discover that this inner division can be healed? That there exists a state of consciousness where intuition and rationality, impulse and discernment, passion and serenity can harmoniously coexist. Gnosis isn't a set of beliefs to be passively accepted. It's a direct confrontation with your own truth. It's as if authentic mysticism whispered in your ear, "You aren't broken, you're divided." and the only real sin is forgetting who you truly are in your totality. When we embrace both Lilith's fall and Magdalene's rise, we begin to remember that the descent was never an exile. It was an initiation into the mysteries of embodied existence. Observe how the people who seem most integrated and authentic are precisely those who don't reject parts of themselves, but have found a way to honor the internal diversity of their natures. They aren't less spiritual for recognizing their desires or limitations. On the contrary, it's this radical honesty that makes them truly luminous. The sacred feminine within you doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for presence. It asks to be felt in your intuition, your creativity, your deepest longings, your courage to be authentically who you are. In the occult, it has always been known that deities aren't external entities to be worshipped, but aspects of consciousness to be integrated and expressed. Ask yourself, where have you exiled parts of your soul? Where have you silenced your inner serpent, hidden your sacred oil? In what aspects of your life have you asked permission to simply exist when what your essence really wants is to express itself freely? Inner reunion begins when we stop waiting for external validation and recognize the innate authority of our integral being. And here's the final revelation of this journey through awakening energy. Gnosis was never out there in ancient texts or elaborate ceremonies. It has always been in the fire that runs through your veins, in the whisper you hear in moments of silence, in the light that shines behind your darkest truths. Lilith and Mary Magdalene were never truly separate. They are two faces of the same feminine essence, one exiled, the other sanctified, divided not by spirit, but by fear. The Gnostic path doesn't choose between them, it reunites them. It sees through the illusion that fragmented the sacred woman in two, and reveals a deeper unity that ancient traditions tried to erase. And the great forbidden truth may not be about them, after all. Perhaps it's about you, about the power, wisdom, and sacred memory still buried in your soul, waiting to be remembered. If this resonated with you, it's because the process of remembrance has already begun. Welcome back. Lilith and Mary Magdalene weren't separated by accident. They were divided so that you would remain divided too. Their union isn't just mythology, it's a map for your own inner integration. Have you thought about what it would be like to live without that constant war between your different parts? How would it feel to honor both your rebellion and your devotion, both your shadow and your light? The time of fragmentation is ending. True spiritual initiation doesn't come from choosing one path over another, but from integrating the polarities. That were always parts of a sacred whole. What parts of you have been exiled? What potentials remain dormant, waiting for your acknowledgement? This isn't just another video, it's a call to awaken, to remember who you really are beyond the masks and divisions that were imposed on you. Are you ready to break the chains of unconsciousness and reclaim your spiritual sovereignty? Your sacred wholeness awaits. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's much more knowledge to be revealed, many more veils to be lifted. The true journey has just begun. See you in the next video.